Well, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, everyone. I'm glad that you're all here for our Wednesday webinar this week. My name's Craig Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Congregational Development for our annual conference. It's really good to see all of you again. This is our fourth Wednesday webinar. Hard to believe we've had 4 Wednesdays so far of our webinar, and we're really excited about today's webinar. When we originally envisioned the Wednesday webinar, it was really focused on having some of our pastors, lay leaders, and others from around our annual conference share some of the very best practices that we're learning during this time of shelter in place while public worship in our sanctuaries and in the use of our buildings has been suspended. It's such an unusual time for so many of our churches, and what we had hoped all along is that we'd be able to share skills and learnings and these best practices amongst ourselves so that we really could discover some of the rich assets and some of the rich blessings we have within our own annual conference. And so we're really excited that we can bring that to you today. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker and our webinar leader in just a moment. But let me tell you a little bit about the interface you're in right now. It's called the Zoom webinar interface. And the Zoom webinar interface does work differently than the regular Zoom meeting platform. The Zoom webinar interface is pretty much built around several people who are called panelists, who are the presenters, and those are the only video feeds that you will see during the webinar. So you don't see all the thumbnails of all the people participating, because that's what you do in a Zoom meeting. In a Zoom webinar, you just see the presenters who are here. So there are 4 of us who are panelists, 2 working behind the scenes. I'll soon vanish and disappear, and you'll only be seeing Ani as she leads us, but there are over 80 attendees logged in right now, so you won't see any other thumbnails. And how we participate in the webinar is by using 2 different features of this platform. One is the webinar chat, and many of you have been signing in and logging where you're from, and we enjoy seeing all the places that you hail from this afternoon. What I will say to you is that in the chat window if you click the chat button at the bottom of the Zoom window, then the chat feed pops up on the right side of your screen. There is a little pop-up menu down at the bottom near where you would type, and that pop-up menu usually says all panelists, but if you click on that menu, you can change it from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. The difference there is if it says all panelists, then only the 4 of us who are panelists see what you write. If you change it to all panelists and attendees, then everybody will see what you write. And I know that during the webinar today, there's going to be some opportunity for you to type some things into the chat window as we move through the webinar. So you're going to want to make sure you use that feature the way you want. If you just want to say what you want to say to the panelists, make sure it says that. If you want it to be the panelists and the attendees, you can do it that way as well. Later on in the webinar, we're going to have a chance for you to have an opportunity to ask questions. And Ani will be able to address those as best she can when we get to that part. And what I'll be asking to use is another feature on the bottom of the Zoom webinar window, which is called Q&A. If you look in the bottom center, you'll see Q&A. If you click on Q&A, you'll be able to type in the question you have that you want to ask later in the webinar. Now, what I will tell you is if you have a question right now, just have you hold on to it. We're going to kind of move through the webinar, and then when we get to the Q&A time, we'll invite you to type those in. And then it's my responsibility to read your questions and then ask them for you. So I'll be looking at those. Now, sometimes the question you have might have a very quick answer, in which case I might just type a response to you in that window and give it to you rather than ask the question live. But for the most part, I try to ask all the questions live. Gives our speaker a chance to respond to them. So I think it's a really good feature we've used over the last few weeks, and we've found it to be really fruitful when trying to engage our speaker. Well, our speaker today is the Reverend Ani Missiriani-Wilson. She is the senior pastor or lead pastor at the Modesto First United Methodist Church, a church that she has been serving very well over the past several years, and she has done some remarkable things in her ministry there. Before serving there, she was at La Trinidad here in our annual conference before she moved here from the Tennessee annual conference, where she lived in Nashville for a period of time. She went to seminary at the Divinity School at Vanderbilt. I know a great Vanderbilt alum who is like crazy about Vandy. So when I saw that you went to Vanderbilt, I went, Fred needs to know about you. So we're just really excited that Ani can be with us today. She has just really learned in so many ways how to leverage this opportunity we have when we're worshiping virtually, when we're not in our buildings. She's really done some remarkable work about how helping her congregation understand its mission and its implication for their stewardship. So when I say stewardship, I don't want you to just think money. When I say stewardship, I want you to think being a steward of all that God has given us. Yeah, part of that may be money, but so much of it is about our time and our energy and our efforts and the way we contribute and engage in ministry in the world. So today we're going to be talking about all of that, what it means to be effective stewards in this time of social distancing and when our church buildings are closed. So I'm looking forward to today's webinar. I know you are too. So I'm going to turn things over right now to Ani to lead us. We're so glad you're here. We're all going to give you some virtual applause, and you will see that in the chat window. People will do all of their applause.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn things over to you. Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow. What an introduction. I can't live up to that. I appreciate that. I will say that I was pleasantly surprised to be asked to do this. So I'm excited just to share specifically what First United Methodist Church has been doing in regards to stewardship, and specifically at this moment in time. So in this crisis, in this unprecedented time together. And we've taken on some new strategies, so I'm going to share those with you. And I recognize that some of the things that we are doing may not work for you and your context. So my hope for our time together is that we can leave with maybe some new ideas, some tools, and you can go back and put those into your particular context in a way that feels like it fits for you all. I also hope this can be a time of mutual sharing and mutual learning, which is a little bit challenging because of this virtual context, but that's why we are going to use the chat, as Craig said. So I hope that you can find that chat button right on the bottom there. And I thought we could begin by practicing, so using that chat tool, and open up with a large question as we begin. So I'm going to type in that question, but I'll tell you what it is. My question to you is, what is one thing that has been particularly challenging for your church in regards to stewardship? One thing that has been particularly challenging right now in regards to stewardship. So I'm going to write that in, and if you would share your name and your one thing, your answer, I will read those out loud as we begin together. So go ahead and do that now. You can probably hear me clicking. Okay, so we have quite a few answers here already. All right, I'm seeing online giving, online giving, maybe how to keep that a sacred thing. Getting the congregation excited about endorsing online giving as an option. Communication, getting people to donate to the general fund, which we're going to talk about from Charles White. Some have lost significant income. Paying the bills. Challenging an old model of pledging to a new model of regular givers that do not want to pledge. Yeah, reaching out to those without computers and smartphones. Maybe reaching out to those who don't have those even skills, even if they have those things. Okay, not sure what to do about special offering. Yep, again, a loss of income. A lot of these are very similar. Okay, communicating the need and fear online giving, sharing a sense of community, no tech skills or equipment. How do we include them? Older members who are not participating in virtual services, using Facebook or online giving, or even mailing and offering. That's really helpful. So One of the things that I think I just heard is people are financially suffering at this time. So how do we talk about financial giving? Another thing is it's not clear. This was for us. One big takeaway for us was it was not clear what the church was doing now that we've closed our doors. And why should people give if the doors are closed? So that was one thing that we had kind of encountered. We heard on there how to contact those who are not in this kind of digital world. And then another thing that I've been hearing too is how do you inspire people to give? How do you create a narrative that feels like it gains any traction? So you all can read through those as we continue along. And we'll do that again with another question as we move forward. So as I said, for us, one of the biggest challenges was a communication challenge, a narrative challenge, which was, why should we give if the church doors are closed? And so at FUMC, we realized that we needed to totally reframe how we're talking about our mission of the church and totally reframe our message and use completely new mediums. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint here, and we'll go through this together. I hope you can see it.
I'm seeing it fine, no problems.
All right, great. So today, I want to begin by talking about these three things: mission, message, and medium, and specifically just share about our journey at First United Methodist Church at reframing each of these. And before I get to this, I also just want to reiterate what we heard Craig say, which is this understanding of stewardship at large. What is that, and what does it mean? And for us at FUMC, something that has been very important is to recognize stewardship as a way to live out our discipleship. And this idea that we are asking ourselves, how can we offer ourselves to God in all of those different ways? And yes, you know, our gifts and our financial means are a part of that, but it's a larger picture, right? And I am sure that you all adhere to that similar philosophy around stewardship. But we have a stewardship team at First United Methodist Church, and they're actually probably the most vital team we have at the church. They're a subgroup of the finance committee, and they get really excited about their work because they see it as kind of all-encompassing, that it's about something bigger than just financial giving. And our motto this year has been, church happens when ... And so each Sunday we've been filling in the blank. So church happens when we pray, when we give, when we act, etc. And so we've had to kind of reframe, church happens when ... in this COVID-19 atmosphere. So let me just share with you a little bit about how we have reframed our mission. And this has been a challenge. All of this, I'm sure, as you guys have been experiencing this too, has been a challenge. But we have decided to simplify and amplify. So we had this really awesome, I thought it was great, we thought it was great, awesome plan for 2020. We call it a ministry action plan. And we have totally scrapped the ministry action plan for 2020. And instead, we have totally reframed our mission for this moment in time and completely focused in on how do we minister through this crisis? How do we minister through the COVID-19 crisis? So we've done this in a couple of ways. But the first is just communicating that, to say, that's what we're doing. The church doors, yes, they may be closed physically, but we are still doing a ton of work around addressing the needs during this time. So one way we've done that, reframed our mission, is virtual worship. And we're going to talk about some tools and specifics as we get further along. But for us, virtual worship has meant not streaming services. We actually have been putting together virtual online worship services. So we have been filming it ahead of time, putting it together, editing it, and then posting it on Sundays. This has given us a little bit more flexibility of crafting the service itself. But the piece here, again, going to that new focus, this new mission, we are specifically looking at worship being a place to find Christ's peace, respite, joy, and tackling topics that are very relevant for this particular time and place. And I think that that is a reason why we've had so much traction around our virtual worship, is that it feels like it is something that is speaking to the current moment. I will say it is not perfect. It has been a huge, steep learning curve for us, as I'm sure it has been for you all too. I have been personally doing the editing of the virtual services, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So it's been tough, but I think it's been very rewarding. The other thing that we have changed in terms of our mission is every single ministry group that we have at the church has been completely repurposed. So every single ministry group has a new focus, and that is to minister to folks dealing with COVID-19, which is everyone. So I'm going to give you some examples. Our Nifty Needles ministry group, they're lovely ladies who do a Bible study and get together and knit and have fun creating crafts. They have partnered with our UMW ministry group, and they have decided to make masks for those who need them. And specifically, the county actually reached out to us and asked us to make hand-sewn masks for their health professionals. So we just recently, those groups made 200 masks for our county, which is so cool, so awesome. So that's an example of how every single group has kind of reframed its idea of what it's doing and tried to lend a hand. Another example is our men-to-men ministry. They have been doing care calls, so calling folks in our community and also in our congregation, checking in on them. Our kids groups have been doing care cards, so they have been sending sweet, joyful little cards to folks who need them. And then our staff, we've completely changed the roles of our staff folks to deal and address COVID-19. Now, I'm telling you all of this because it does go into this larger picture of what stewardship is about. So the first block for us has been reframing our mission and communicating that change. So I'm curious, before I go on, it's kind of strange to talk to a screen. I'm curious, for you, have you all seen a shift in the way that you are understanding your mission? So I'm going to ask that you do share with us again on that chat section. And let me see if I can pull it up here. So I'm hearing my audio is going in and out. I'll work on that as you answer this question. So how has your mission shifted? Has it? Would you mind answering that question? How has your mission shifted? Has it? Okay, people are saying audio is fine. That's good. Tell us something about the mission. Your church's mission in the midst of this. Okay, we've just been using different tools to continue our discipleship work. Okay, another church has changed their staff focus and job descriptions. Someone said they like the idea of the ministry groups focusing on ministry related to COVID-19. Helping our people connect with a sacred space and with their church family. Yeah. Okay, mission has shifted to reach out to people who cannot get online, mostly phone ministry. Now that is a great idea. And daily prayer group in Zoom. That's something that I think we can explore more, is some of the Zoom group meetings. Phone calls, Facebook, sermons, snail mail. Okay, someone has said here, Elizabeth, that our call to feed the hungry has increased greatly, and their food distribution work has increased. Excellent. Okay, there's a phone buddy system to regularly interact with seniors. Lois is saying mission hasn't shifted, but pastoral staff and groups are changing based on the more online needs, moving up in priority. Helpful. Okay. Unfortunately, I can't get my congregants to look outside themselves. They're focusing inward. Okay, I'm seeing lots of phone calls. I want to read this. This is from Andrew Davis. Our mission in Quincy is about being Christ ambassadors, and we are seeing us live fully into being Christ ambassadors and calling on each other, offering virtual worship, virtual check-ins. While we are minimally staffed, our council has stepped up as Christ ambassadors and helping with the care of the congregation. Okay, our mission of connecting with people with God hasn't changed. How we implement that mission has. Great. Okay, wonderful, wonderful answers. I hope you can read through some of those too. Again, I want this to be shared time of collaboration. Sermons are printed and placed in a box in front of the church. That's an interesting idea. Okay, getting as many people involved in crafting online worship as possible from their homes. Excellent. Wow, there's so many great ones. So I'm going to have to go back and read through these. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. Fantastic. Okay. I want to continue on here. If I can learn how to get this chat window out of here. There we go. Okay, so because we've been doing things differently, our message has changed. And here we go. Our message has changed. So we're going to break this down in terms of how we have been crafting our message. We have had one particularly consistent theme, one consistent ask, and a consistent offering of the work that we're doing. So I thought I would show you a clip. I don't love watching videos of myself, but hopefully this will be edifying. I'm going to show you a clip that comes from one of our worship videos, and it's the offering portion of the video, so you can hear kind of how we have been messaging. So I'm going to do that now. Oops. Okay, there we go. Oh no, technology, there are faults. Give me a second. Let's try that one more time. Thanks for your patience. Okay, let's see if this works. Fingers crossed. Continue to rise up together during this time of pandemic. We can
pray. We can give of our spirit that way. We can give of our needs. And we can act. We can give of our hands and feet. Today's special Easter offering will go to combat the effects of the virus, both locally and globally. Locally, your offering today will go to support the First United Methodist Church COVID-19 response team. This week alone, our members have made hand-sewn 200 masks that we've given to the Stanislaus County Behavioral Health Department. This week alone, there have been cards and calls to the most vulnerable among us. This week alone, we have stocked fridges and gone grocery shopping, provided errands and medication for those who are critically homebound. We need your continued support to do this pivotal work.
All right, I think you got the idea there, yeah? So kind of to break that down, one of the biggest themes that we're sharing, so you saw that we're using that online platform, and I'm going to share some specifics about that in a few minutes. But the big theme is there's not a lot that we can do, but here are some things that we can. So although we may feel like there's so much we can't do, here are the things that we can. So we've been kind of reiterating that. And I do think that that message has hit home for folks outside of our congregation as well. So within the community, we have had folks engage in these different ways to give of ourselves. And they have been folks that aren't usually really that engaged with our congregation. So there have been folks from the community who are wanting to do something. So the big ask, you heard it there, is to give. And so we're asking folks to either mail in, to use their mobile devices, to use our website. We also have e-news, and then they could also text. So we're trying to have lots of different platforms in which they can give. And then the work itself, I do think it's helpful to continue to report back metrics of what is it that we're actually doing, and how those things can be measurable, and that we should celebrate the fruitfulness of those things. So you heard me do a little bit of that in that last video. But we're continuing trying to track what we're doing and how much we are doing so that we can report back. So if people feel like it's a important investment of their time, of their resources, of their financial gift, etc. And you heard me say pray, give, act. So those are the three things that we particularly are focused on. I love this quote. This is from Henry Nouwen, who's one of my favorite theologians. Every time I take a step in the direction of generosity, I know I am moving from fear to love. And I do think that there is a beautiful freedom in being able to act at this particular moment in time, and recognizing that it has such weight to it. So that's where we are with our messaging. So in the work that you have done, you know, I would be curious to continue to read back the ways that your message and your techniques and your strategies have changed. I want to move now to Medium, and this is where I'd like to really dig into some of the tools and kind of the granular ways that we are practicing these things that I hope might be helpful. So let's do that. So in terms of our virtual tools, outside of just this context, we've gotten feedback from clergy asking about some of the virtual tools that we have been using. So I want to share those. We love sharefaith.com. It's specifically geared towards churches, and it's a huge graphic database. So that graphic that you just saw me play, the purple background, and it was a little video clip, that comes from ShareFaith. Most of our sermon bulletin images come from ShareFaith. A ton of the imaging from our website comes from ShareFaith. A lot of the images you have seen today on this PowerPoint come from ShareFaith. So definitely check that out. And if you use it, share that in our comments. I'd be curious. In terms of our video editing software, we have been using iMovie. Now, iMovie is only for Macs, but it has been really helpful. And I thought I would play a clip, although again, I don't love sharing videos of me, but I thought I'd share a clip to show you the different things that you can do that are kind of fun, even within, let's say, a sermon, to kind of bring out the sermon dynamics. I will say I'm not an editing guru at all. Like, I never did it before all of this. So it is very user-friendly, and you can do as much or as little as you want. So if you use iMovie, share that also if you have found it helpful or not helpful. But I'm going to go ahead and show this piece of a video. Oh no, it did it again. Okay, give me a second. Sorry.
Up to me and shared with me that she was deeply moved by the scripture, but not because of anything that I said, and not because of the theme that I was lifting up. Instead, she preached to me in a very profound way. She shared that what she heard in the story, in the book of Ruth, was the theme of joy. And in fact, I remember what she said. She said, "I know that the world wanted me to be Naomi, but I refused. And God has put the spirit of Ruth in me." What a wonderful thing. And this wonderful woman was alluding to the fact that the book of Ruth has two main characters, and one chooses bitterness, and the other chooses joy. So let's take a closer look together at this story. Part 1, Ruth's story of joy. Do you remember the story of Ruth? If not, I encourage.
So you can see there, oops, how you can kind of play with the different uses of iMovie. I'm sharing all of this in terms of reframing our medium. So just like we had to reframe our mission and our message, we also have had to obviously change all of our medium. So I'm specifically talking about the ways that we have adapted our medium to be online. And you know, there were questions in the beginning of the challenge of folks who are not in the digital world. And I think that that's something we're going to still have to grapple with and find ways to get the materials that we are creating in tangible form to our folks. One way we've done that for First is to do different mailings. But I know I've heard from some of our elderly population that they're not even wanting to touch the mail, afraid of contamination. So that's going to be an open-ended question for us of how do we continue to deal with that. But in terms of dealing with the new digital reality, these again are for us helpful tools. And I hope they might be helpful for you. We use also Poster My Wall. Such a strange name, but a really great tool. It's an image editing software. And that way you can, let's say, take an image from ShareFaith, put it into Poster My Wall, and then write whatever you want on it. So you can kind of customize those images. That's how I created this PowerPoint today, for example. So I'd be curious if any of you use Poster My Wall. All of these are relatively inexpensive, and there's some different free versions as well you can look into. We have a newsletter. We use Constant Contact. I imagine that's more familiar to some of you. Again, a really great tool to kind of send a blast email out. So if you use Constant Contact, share that with us. And then Wix.com. We totally rebuilt our website last year, and we used Wix.com, which is a website creator website. It also is super user-friendly. So I did part of it, my husband did a part of it. So we also had someone help us with it. But if you don't have a website right now and you're looking for something to have some kind of online platform, that would be, I think, a good place to start. So if you have been using Wix, let us know. I want to take a moment and ask you now to share some of the helpful tools that you have been using as you reframe your medium of work as you look to the digital world. So go ahead and do that now. Are there any other resources that we need to know about as a group? I'll bring up my chat here. Oh, there's lots and lots of things. Okay. Here we go. Okay, one question is, has FUMC had online giving? So yes, we do. We have online giving on our website, and we give that information out in different formats. So via text or e-newsletter, etc. What text giving do you use? We use Vanco. I can get that information to you, Elizabeth, if you want that. Okay, someone has ShareFaith, someone has Constant Contact that they use, they like. Someone is offering up Fiverr.com, and I have used Fiverr as well. It's a great way to outsource small projects without spending a lot of money. And that's Fiverr.com. There's another simpler service called SundaySocial.tv for Facebook graphics. So that's a good resource. Churchart.com is another one I'm seeing. Okay, this is helpful. This is coming from Elizabeth. She's using on her Android cell phone, InShot. And it's ways that you can edit videos. That's helpful, especially for folks who are not using Mac. YouTube, we're gonna get to YouTube. MailChimp has been great. I've used that before as well. Zoom, iMovie, etc. Aware 3 mobile app. I'm excited to check all these things out. Thank you for sharing. Good. Planning Center. It's a church software that your church can use. And I've been curious about that, Emily. So I'm glad to know that you recommend that. Planning Center. Good to know. Okay, Movie Maker Pro, Online Giving, and Vanco. So the Vanco is what we use for folks to give online, and they can even text a number and give that way through Vanco. Lee says that PCO giving module works for them. Thank you, Lee. There's so many great resources. I'm so glad we're putting these all in this chat. So go through these, continue to go through these and look at this. GarageBand. Okay, and I'm hearing that a lot of you are in the same boat as me and trying to do this on your own. So as a pastor, obviously this is not something we were taught, and that we are all doing our best. It is definitely a steep learning curve. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, let me move on here just for the sake of time, but please continue to read those. Those are great, great resources from the community. I appreciate that. I'm going to move here to share with you our online platforms. So we are kind of under the methodology that the more the better. We post the same thing. It's not different content. It's the same content across all of our platforms. The reason why we've been doing this and why we feel like it's been helpful is we'll get, for example, like 150 views on Facebook. And then separately, we'll get maybe 100 to 200 views on YouTube. And then separately, we'll get 200 views on Vimeo, for example. So when you add all of, I'm assuming that there are not people that are going to each platform and watching the same video. When you add all of that up, the same content across the platforms, then you have a critical mass of views. So I do think that we are reaching different people by using these different platforms. We like to use Vimeo first because Vimeo actually can connect to your Facebook and your YouTube and your website. So you don't have to physically go and upload everything separately. Vimeo will do it for you. So for that reason, we have found Vimeo to be helpful. I also have noticed that Vimeo seems to be a bit clearer. The videos I showed you today were from YouTube, so they were a little bit granular. So Vimeo seems to work for us. Obviously, we post everything on our website, and then we also post things on e-newsletter via email, which again, we use Constant Contact. And that's a good way to get folks who are not using, our elderly congregation, who are more familiar with email, that wouldn't check any of those other sites. Again, we would like to continue to do mailings if it feels like that is helpful, and if people are actually checking their mail. So would you share now with us what online platforms, if there are any that are other than the ones I've listed here that have been helpful for you, if you would share those with the group? Any other online platforms, or maybe any other ideas to connect with folks that are not in the digital world? Go ahead and share that now. I see some banter happening on the chat line. Okay, I'm not seeing any specific answers about new platforms, so I'm imagining, oh, here we go. Lois said Sunday streams. Okay, that's new to me. Boxcast. They're using YouTube, website, Twitter. Interesting. And they're using email. Okay, Sunday streams, and Boxcast. Excellent. Okay, this is helpful, Beth. Thank you. So Beth is saying that they are using Zoom for worship time, and they are screen sharing to play the pre-recorded worship so people can call and listen in on their phones. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'm going to wait just a second longer and see if we have any other. We're using Zoom for Bible study. Zoom is a great resource. Okay, Andrew's saying I'd like to explore Vimeo more. Google Meet. Oh, Carolyn, interesting. Similar to Zoom. Okay, so I kind of want to wrap it up since we are going to go now into question and answer, but I just wanted to say this, that for us, as we have reframed how we talk about our particular mission right now, our particular message, and the new mediums that we are using, it has definitely helped on our end to kind of tackle that larger question that we began with. And I think that we have. I don't think people are questioning any longer, what is the church up to? Why should we give? Why should we support? I think we have been able to answer that through these three things: message, our mission, message, and medium. So that's hopeful. You know, there's still so much we need to learn, and I'm really, really thankful for your input today and interaction. I'm excited to dig into those tools. So thank you for your time. I hope that was helpful. We're all learning together. Craig, should I hand it over to you?
Yep, I am here. And you might want to stop your screen sharing so everybody can see you full frame. And we have a couple of questions coming in. Again, if you have a question for Ani, please type it in the question and answer box at the bottom of your Zoom window. So just click Q&A, and then in there you can type your questions, and I will do my best to answer them. So this is kind of backing up a little bit to what you're talking about. The question is being asked, Ani, what resource do you use for online giving? Oh, can't hear you.
Oops, sorry.
There you go.
To break that down. So when we ask folks to give, so for example, when you heard me say that online, we specifically ask folks to go to our website, and our website is connected with Vanco. So there's a drop-down menu when they give, when you go to our giving page. I could probably pull it up, but I'm not going to do that right now. When you go to our giving page, a drop-down menu, and they can select what they want to give to. The general fund comes up first, and they can designate their giving that way. We use Vanco, so it goes through our website, but we also send that out via email. And again, they click on that and it goes to our website. Or when we do texting giving, it goes through Vanco, so they can text and it'll do a drop-down menu in their phone panel, and they can give that way directly. But it's all tied into the Vanco system.
All right, terrific. A question about how you're doing your live worship is because we noticed in your live worship that it's coming from your sanctuary. All right. Yeah. So do you have a team that records you in the sanctuary, or are you alone? How do you pull that off?
Yeah, so we have chosen to record on Fridays, and we have staggered the slots. So every person comes in a different time, so that there's just one person there alongside our videographer, so that they can keep social distancing. And then the only exception to that is when we have 4 singers who are 6 feet apart, and they all record at once together. But other than that, we have a kind of staggered video segments, and then I mash it all up together in the editing in the back end.
All right, awesome. All right, we have another question here. You mentioned that all ministry groups changed their focus when COVID-19 started, and we're living in the situation we're now in. So, including, you said you changed what your staff was working on. So what are your staff doing now?
Yeah, their roles have changed pretty dramatically. They are now, we have a lot of different staff personnel. So let me just give you an example. Our administrative assistant, she's now working with me to create some of the slides, for example, that show up in our videos. So doing things that are going to go into our video, some of the legwork, so that I don't have to go through and do all of that. And then she'll email me and I'll put it into the software. So that's stuff she never did before. She's still doing some of her old roles, like checking our call log and checking email and those kinds of things. But that would be one example. Another example is we just started this new initiative where we have assigned names to each staff person, and they're to call those people that particular week and then report back on how those folks are doing. That way we can check in with the entirety of our congregation in a shorter amount of time than just our congregational care team calling folks individually. Hopefully that gives you enough examples.
Good. I had somebody asking if a copy of the chat is possible. It is possible, and so I wanted to let you know that is we're able to do that. And maybe what I'll do before I turn things over to Selby shortly here, I will show you how to find all the webinars on the conference website so you can see where they're all located, including this one. Once we have it edited down and posted, you'll be able to find it for everyone who's watching. All right, one of the questions that Samuel has is this, is how are you doing youth ministries right now?
That's a great question. That has been a much bigger challenge for us. We have a family minister who is tasked with checking in on all of our families. And we have a Friday news blast, a Friday newsletter essentially. And there's a kids segment in each Friday's news blast. So it has different activities and ideas, and it has a little Bible study and things that our kids can do with their families. So hopefully prompting the kids to engage in what they would have maybe done in Sunday school, for example. So that's one way that we're trying to get the kids involved. We also, for Easter, handed out these little Easter baskets for all of our children, and we had folks go and drop those off at their houses that had fun activities and some Bible study ideas as well. But that has been more of a challenge for us. We'd love feedback on different ways that are working for you guys.
Okay, good. A couple more questions coming in. This is from your boss. How has giving changed during the shelter in place? And are people using your new platforms? Are you seeing a rate of adoption there, I guess would be the way to put it?
Yes, and I'll answer that in two parts. First is in terms of engagement of worship, our worship attendance has doubled because of the online platform. So, and we can see very specific analytics using Vimeo. So you can see how long people watched, when they stopped watching, how many people watched. So, you know, for Easter for us, we were able to reach 400 households, whereas before we were worshiping with about 400 people. And then in terms of giving, you know, we're still watching those metrics and tracking them. But I will say that there have been some givers that have come from the community that we've not seen before show up on our giving logs. So that's promising. I think it's a little too early to tell where we are in terms of metrics from last year versus this year, and where the giving is. But at this point, financially, that's what you're asking, Deborah. We're doing okay, and I'm really thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that's being asked, and it's an excellent question too, is how do you think this can scale downward and scale upward? I mean, now that you've been using these platforms for a while, you obviously, you know, you have a church of a certain size, you have a certain amount of staff, certain amount of budget, certain amount of things that can help resource this stuff. So how do you think it could scale down, and how do you think it could scale up?
Okay, well, I'm really excited about the scaling up idea. So we actually already have this idea in place that we would like to continue. Yes, to stream worship services moving forward, so more people can attend worship that way. But we also want to continue this online virtual offering. And so we have set up, it's new and we're still thinking through it, but basically even when we get back together, we're going to have a video offering for folks to tune in. It'll be much shorter, maybe 20 minutes, but one per week. And it will be offering the message that was offered up on Sunday, but in a totally different format, so that we can continue to connect with those who are tuning in now and who probably won't walk into the doors of our church necessarily. So we are hoping to scale up that way to continue that work because we put so much infrastructure in place. Scale down, I don't really have an answer for that other than, you know, I think things will continue to kind of normalize, and, you know, our staff roles will go back to normal. And I think one big learning for us is when you simplify and amplify, there's more traction. So maybe looking at ways to do that across our ministries moving forward in a different way, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let's say you were in a church half the size of your church now, okay, with half the resources and half the capacities, what would have to change for you if that were the case?
In what regard? Change?
Well, I mean, in terms of your production time, I mean, from I guess the way I'd say it is, what I'm hearing from a lot of our pastors is that a lot of the burden to do some of this work is falling on their shoulders. So they have magically become video editors overnight. They've acquired a whole set of skills and they've acquired them quickly in crisis. So let's say if you were in the situation where you were dealing with a much smaller congregation, a lot less resources, what advice or input could you give people? What are the most important things to focus on if you've got a limited amount of resources you can put to this?
Yeah. The first would be, I think, just continuing to get out a specific message from the pastor, a message of hope. I think that's an essential piece of what we're doing, and to find at least one way to respond to the crisis and engage ministry that way, even if that's a very pared down version. I will say that even with as big as our congregation is, which, you know, I am doing most of the editing work, and we just have one videographer. So in terms of what we are offering in terms of online videos, it's really kind of a 2-person deal. Now, is that the best model? I don't know, but that's where we are. So I would say just focusing on paring it down and making sure that you're connecting as pastor with a hopeful voice to your congregation in a way that's meaningful, whatever that looks like for you.
All right, good. And I'm going to tackle, let's see, one last question, all right? And then I'm going to show people where to find the workshop on the website. Someone is asking, were you offering online services before COVID-19?
Yes, in part. So I do feel like that was helpful in terms of springboarding us. We had already in place our YouTube channel, our website, and our Facebook, and those were pretty active. We were not recording worship at all. We were just recording the sermons with a little iPhone and posting those on our YouTube page. So it has, radically developed since all of this.
Oh, okay, excellent. Excellent. All right. So let me show you real quick where you can find the webinars on the website. Ani, I don't want to let you go for a second in case another question pops in, but I just want to show folks on the website where you can find the Wednesday webinars. I'm going to share my screen with you. This is a web browser. If you look on our conference webpage, cnumc.org, if you just scroll down here on the right beneath the bishop's message, you'll see a button here on the right side I'm circling called Wednesday Webinars. If you click on that button, it will pop up with a listing of the webinars that we have had so far. And you can see, back all the way to April 1st, all the webinars that are there. If you were to click on one of them, let's say the one on the 8th of April, you could click on that webinar, and then it would open a page where there's a little bit of an explanation. But over here on the right is what I want to draw your attention to. You'll see quick links, and that's where you'll be able to find a recording of the webinar. You'll be able to find the PowerPoint that was used in that webinar and any other materials that need to be there. All right, so that's where you find it on the conference webpage. Pretty easy to land there. So hopefully you're able to access some of that material over the coming weeks. We're going to be archiving all of the webinars there. All right, so let me stop the share. We got just, let's see here. I'm looking at the questions. We did that one. All right, I'm almost there. All right, good. I think I got them all. I have a running commentary with your boss, which is a whole lot of fun. So we'll enjoy that together. So what we want to do now is, first of all, give our virtual applause to Ani for such a fantastic job in today's workshop. What great leadership for us. So virtual applause once again. All right, good. It's all coming in on the chat. We like giving virtual applause. Again, these Wednesday webinars are about showcasing our best and brightest leadership that are helping us navigate these really challenging times for all of our churches. There are churches that have been streaming online worship for quite some time. There are some that just figured it out 4 weeks ago. And so we are all in this process together. And the more we can learn from each other, we really strengthen the connectional system in relationships. We know we're not alone. Everyone is in this together, and we're trying to do the best job we can. So with that said, thanks, Ani, very much. I'm going to turn things over to our Director of Communications, Selby Ewing, who is going to lead us as we close out and finish the afternoon. And God bless.
Well, thank you so much, Craig. And I'm so happy to be with you. And what a wonderful, wonderful session from Ani. I've made some notes just from my own hearing of this session. And one of the things, one of the words that comes to me in terms of what Ani has been able to do is she's been nimble. So she and her team looked at what was happening, and they said, you know, there are some different skills, there's some different focus that we need to attend to. And they adapted. So adaptive leadership, very important here. I think these webinars are a networking and learning opportunity. So I would invite everyone to keep showing up and sharing, very important, sharing your own learnings as you go, as we go together. I think that the most important thing we can do in this time is to really find a way, a valuable way to stay connected. And I think each of these webinars, even though they have separate foci, separate focus, show us that. So I'm very, very gratified to be a part of this process. I thank Ani. I think she's been fantastic. I wrote some notes down. I think simplify and amplify are very, very good, you know, guides for us. And I think, you know, I would just encourage us to share, and I would invite everyone tuned in today to share with me and with Communications at California Nevada Conference the way you're doing things, because we want to amplify that as well. So I would just thank everyone, and I would just appreciate this learning opportunity in this most difficult time. So with that, I'll say goodbye.
Thank you all.